Hello. So last video we designed a hose, very quick hose, and we picked out some batteries and modeled them to put into our design. I should probably move the microphone a little closer. If I talk right into it, it'll be super loud. Most people who aren't paying attention just be like, ah, that'd be fantastic. Our next step, so here I had this labeled out. We had to come up with the intake, had to come up with piping, battery, hose, and lastly we do have to come up with a frame. Now the reason why you could have technically made a frame prior to designing all those components. Really you could have designed a frame after this and just tried to modify the frame to fit in these, but I don't really want to have to modify the frame. I kind of want the frame to just fit around everything. So here I've got all of my components labeled. I did discover that my battery is going to have to be sitting under my piping, and I may have to adjust the piping, but I may just be okay with the battery sitting really low. That's actually where I'm going to be closer to, but basically my frame shape, my shape of my frame is going to have to come up here. It'll have to go around this motor mount, come down here to this fan mount, and it'll probably be kind of a squarish shape. So that's what my frame is going to kind of look like. You'll notice that I put this in the actual vacuum outline layer. Yeah, I guess that's kind of frame material though. But that's kind of where I want my frame to be. I want my frame to wrap around the back edge of this, wrap around this, come down and kind of wrap around this dust reservoir. Now, my purpose here in building a frame is the frame is going to be the component that everything mounts to. So it's kind of the most critical piece. What I am going to do very quickly is I'm going to take some quick measurements in this drawing, because this will allow me to determine some sizes for when I design my frame. So here this is 9.35 inches. What I'll probably end up doing is making a 9.5 inch wide frame. And I don't remember what this dimension here is. That is 8 inches. Okay, so in this view, it'll just be a simple shape that wraps around like this. In this view, I do kind of want it to look like this, so I'll probably just like cut out a piece and maybe round the front. But we'll start by, you know what? We'll start by making this profile shape here, kind of rounded piece that goes up like that. And then we will cut into it. Basically, I'm going to make it a hollow box so that it'll wrap around the fan mount over here, but then have a flat surface for the motor mount to mount back here. And then it'll be a flat surface here, and I could just put like a protrusion here and here to connect onto the dust reservoir. So that's how we will design it. And we're going to make it 9.5 inches wide this way by 8 inches wide that way. So go ahead and drop out of this. I'm going to say no because I didn't really make any big changes. And we'll go ahead and pop up SolidWorks. I only had 2 instances of SolidWorks running. Well done, Kale. Well done. So here we'll create a new part. This new part is going to be our frame. And I'm just going to make it really simple, because the more complex you make the frame, yeah, it allows you to shape it. You want your frame to fit inside of your body, and it has to be something that everything mounts to, but I feel like the more complex I make it, the more work I'm just creating for myself. This video, by the way, is not sponsored by, but is associated with Hawaiian Punch. This is their green berry rush juice. It's fantastic. All right, so we'll start with a sketch. As I said, we were going to do that kind of that profile view. So here I'll start a sketch. I'm going to do it on the front plane. And I'm going to create that profile view. Now, where do I want the center of this to be? You know what? I'll make the center of this be the center of the fan axle. So make it this. Then what we'll have is we'll have a line that connects from the top of this circle, goes over like this, it then comes down and attaches here. Now you'll notice that the way I drew that line, this is tangent. Otherwise I could add in a tangent relation. This one is also tangent, but I mostly care about it being up in line with that. Now I'm going to do a quick trim, cut that piece, and now I got to assign some dimensions to finalize this. I've already got my tangent relation here, and here I've already got my coincident relation. I've already got this being a horizontal relation. This right here already has a vertical relation between this point where this line begins and this center line. All of those are things that I want. So, yeah, a couple of dimensions should be all I need really to round this out. Now, the way that I have this designed, this is an 8-inch circle that goes into the inside. My frame is going to be about an 1/8 inch because it's going to be an 1/8 inch, probably ribbed aluminum or something. I'm going to model it as a solid piece of metal, so it would be a lot heavier the way that I design it than it would actually be implemented in real life. But I had the same thing for the battery. I didn't put any air inside the battery, so it seemed like it was like 12 pounds. Whatever. Here, if I do an 1/8 of an inch on both sides of that fan mount, that does equate to this having a diameter of 8.25 inches. Otherwise, a radius, which is what it's asking for, of 4.125 inches. I'm going to hit Control Z. Before I dimension this. Okay, and then we'll go off here, and I'm going to instead start with 4.125 because that's a radius. Modeling the radius. Notice how earlier when I set it to 8.25 and then adjusted it, it shifted the drawing. The first dimension you put down is going to basically provide a size for the entire drawing. So one of the nice features about SolidWorks. So you don't have to draw it a size, but it'll figure out what size you want later on. Okay, so back here, let's see. I don't know, I think that was like 10 inches. I can always come back in and adjust. Here, I'm going to set this at 4 inches. And this should fully dimension my drawing. So there we go. I'll exit sketch. What I'll do is I will extrude this that direction, and then I'll just punch a hole through the top of this thing. Pretty easy. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So here, the thickness of this was 9.5. Since I want this to be 0.125 on both sides, that's going to mean 9.75 inches. Okay. Now, if this was a solid block of metal, this would be the most heavy vacuum since the 1990s, when every vacuum was this heavy. All of you fortunate people who didn't have to vacuum in the 1990s. By the way, all of my muscles came from vacuuming in the friggin' 1990s. And it was like, hey, can you go vacuum the front room? Like, all right, I've been training my whole life for this. Seriously, why were those things so heavy? It's because they used solid metal frames. They didn't use ribbed metal. They didn't use any of the modern manufacturing plastic methods that we have of making frames that are actually nice. I guess I should probably make this out of like plastic. You can make a really hard plastic way lighter than even aluminum. Man, I digress. So I'm going to draw on this top plane, and I'm just going to cut out a shape. So Oh, I'm going to start actually by drawing this rectangle, selecting this rectangle and setting it for construction. Well, I guess I have to do that on every one of these lines. Yay. Construction. Escape. So now they're all just construction lines. So, including this one. Nice. Alright. Now what I'll do is I'm just going to offset this. That was a mistake. Oh man. Never mind. Instead of drawing it offset, I'll just put it in dimension. Here. Smart dimension. Here to here. I want you to be 0.125. Okay, and I'll do the same here to here. And you know me, instead of dimensioning every one of these, which wouldn't really be that much of a pain, I prefer to put in relations. So I'm going to go ahead and hover over this one, control click, and hover over the center point up here. Where are you, center point? There you are. With those both selected, it's a vertical. And you know where I'm going over here. Hit escape, hover over the center point, control click that one, hover over the center point, control click that one, set these two horizontal. And at this point, the drawing is fully defined with 1/8 inch gap around the outsides, which is what I want. I just want it to be an 1/8 inch. That's what I picked. So then I'll just do an extruded cut and I'll go through everything. And that'll be my frame. Don't want to do a blind. Just want to cut. There we go. Now you will notice that because I cut this, oh my goodness, this piece here is going to be so extremely flat. Because of the way that I cut this, I mean, yeah, that works. That probably was not the best way of doing it, though. A better route would have been to, I'm going to go ahead and delete this. A better route actually would have been to, instead, I'm going to leave that sketch there. I'm going to do a shell. And here I want the shell distance to be 0.125. And I'm going to, I didn't shell anything. I don't even know why it saved that feature. I'm going to pick this bottom surface here. Okay, then I can show a preview. Just shows basically that it shells the whole thing. Yeah, I like that. So, yay. Now what I'll do is I'm actually going to keep everything but this top piece right here. So I'm going to go back and edit this sketch. And instead of having this point be coincident with the outside point, which is right there, which is a projection of that corner, instead what I want is I want to pick this point, and I want to go over here and control pick that point, and I actually want to set those to be constant. It's going to adjust this a little bit. And now what it'll do is it'll allow me to cut this so that my frame is pretty rigid right here, but otherwise it's open. So as soon as I do that, oh, hey, right, my bad. I deleted the extruded cut. I'm once again just going to do through all both. Oh no! There we go. So now I have a frame that is a full 1/8 inch that doesn't just shave the front here, which was a terrible idea on my part. I didn't even think about that. But this is a solid frame. Now, what I'm going to be doing from here is the next steps in building this frame is I have to actually create holes to mount components to it. That is a little time consuming, but that is my next steps. Having just a frame to mount everything to is the first step. Now this is kind of a blocky frame, but it is a very, very, very good piece to start with. I can't emphasize this enough. As a first prototype, you don't mind if your first prototype is a little clunky, because it's a prototype. It's not a full manufactured product. This isn't a final product by any means. When we go back and actually finish this design, we'll be able to look at the full design and be like, okay, there's air spaces right here where we can bring that frame in, or we can move this part here and we could bring that frame in, or we could round the frame here, we could make it lighter this way, we could find a better battery, we could find a better motor. There's tons of different ways that we can use to really lighten this model up. But this is a first prototype. The idea is optimization is a future design process. Generation is the first one. You have to be really kind to yourself in the generation process. This isn't a final product. It's a prototype. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this as here. We've basically designed our frame. In the next video, what we'll do is we're going to put some mounting locations for all of our components. So here we'll mount the... oh shoot, I didn't give enough space for the intake. I'll probably end up cutting a hole in this so that the intake can pop out of it. Yeah. But I'll have to cut a hole in this for the intake. I'll have to mount the actual, yeah. Wow, I just didn't prepare for the intake at all. I completely forgot about the component. But then I'll start building an assembly where all of my components come in here and fit neatly into this frame, including the battery that I built, including dust reservoir. I mean, everything is going to be coming in here and fitting into this frame. So that is going to be my next video. We'll have to do some modifications, and it will be kind of a longer video. But I've got a frame. I'll hit save. I'll call this frame. And that's it. All right, and I will see you in the next video so that we can finalize the design of our frame, assemble everything, and be one step closer